What were you told to keep secret about a company you worked for? But you don't work there anymore, so, F those guys. The first thing you do every day at PetSmart is dump the dead reptiles into the trash. We treated them as well as we could, once they were in the store, given our fairly minimal resources, but they're mistreated in transit and often die within a day of arriving at the store. We once reordered a chameleon 3 times, because they kept dying. Everyone knew they were too delicate to transport, but head office wanted a chameleon in the store. Most employees aren't aware of this, since management tries to sweep it under the rug, but I was the morning custodian. The birds are also neurotic as hell, due to sheer mind-numbing boredom, and the rodent's bite, because they're unsocialized. Elderly hamsters get put in the back room, where they'll never be purchased, because they make customers sad. At least in my experience, the employees genuinely try to take care of the animals, but it's just not a good environment for them. The cats are okay, though, since they're not actually sold by PetSmart. The company just lends display space to rescue groups and shelters. They're mostly pretty happy and well cared for. Edit. Thank you for the gold, kind stranger. Just in case anyone's interested in helping out an animal without going through a corporate pet store, your local shelter probably has birds and rodents who need homes. You can also ask PetSmart employees if they have any animals in the back, although that's a morally gray area, since they'll reorder another animal to replace the one you purchased. Same for Petco. We didn't have a custodian, but we had the small animal caretaker, which was me. And it was sad. All of it was just really effing sad. I did my absolute best to take care of those fuzzy and scaly kids, but I wasn't the only one taking care of them. I'd come in after a weekend off, and see animals that had been dead for days. I quit the day I told my boss about a ham that looked like she had Parkinson's or something, and he said, "Just stuff her in a pen in the back. She'll die soon enough." I was done. Worked at Domino's in college. Our franchisee made it a fireable offense to call in sick. If you missed a scheduled shift, it would be considered quitting, and you wouldn't get put on the schedule ever again. As a result, workers would come into work incredibly ill, and still make your food. I once witnessed a coworker begin to make a pizza, stop to go puke in the bathroom, then continue making the pizza. My husband once called in sick. He is an EMT. He was vomiting, and could not leave the bed. This is the only time I've ever seen him call in sick. He found out a couple weeks afterwards. The higher-ups wrote him up for calling in ill. That company is now being flushed down the toilet. The company had been committing fraud for years. Another profession, where you don't really want the person caring for you also vomiting on you. Edit. Whoa. This blew up. Was not expecting that at all. I really feel for anyone who has worked for, or is currently working with cruddy companies. My husband has finally landed a job with a company that is really doing things right, and they truly appreciate his hard work, and they even include me in their thoughts and events. I know I'm kind of speaking for him, but I wish more employers would understand the way they treat their employee, who may just be a number to them, really affects the family. Thank you. ER nurse here. My hospital pulls this kind of bullshit. I was seen in my own ER for a heart rate of 160, and needed medical attention. Our hospital allows for 6 absences every year for illness. Did they count this toward mine? You betcha. Despite the fact that I received care from my own staff, my own physicians, and my own charge nurses at my ER, and ended up admitted to the hospital, I still got points against me for calling in. Sure, in an office jobs, 6 days per year seems reasonable. However, consider that people in healthcare are exposed to nasty, contagious pathogens 100% of their day. I'm literally around sick people 24/7 when I work, and yet I get punished if I call in, even if my own ER can vouch for my absence. Shit's effed up. I worked at a certain big box store several years ago. At the time, it had a yellow smiley face for its logo. Now, it is a weird star thing. Anyway, every Christmas, they would put out a bin for customers to donate toys, clothes, etc. to low-income children. Everything that went into that bin went back on the shelf. If it didn't have a receipt attached, we couldn't prove it had been purchased. If it had a receipt, we were supposed to make sure it fell off. Don't donate anything at that store. Edit. I don't know if it happens at many stores, but it happened at the particular store I worked at. This was all over 10 years ago, so alerting the media or naming the manager wouldn't do much good. As far as inventory goes, I don't think anyone really cared much about it during the holiday season, Every January and February, we would go through our departments, with the tells on, and manually update any on-hand counts that were incorrect. I don't know if that is a standard company practice. It would be right before the GSI inventory contractors came through. Ruby Falls is fake. Their waterfall is pumped in. It's artificial. The formations are paint, and plastic, and styrofoam, or occasionally purchases from other caves, halfway across the country. They lie about the height of the falls. Like not a little exaggeration, they claim it's almost twice as high as it is. Most of the stories your tour guides tell you are made up. Unless they have gray hair, their funny quips about past tours are mostly BS. The employees are not told any of this, and have to piece it together on their own. A lot of management legitimately doesn't know. The tour guides know and don't care. The ones that do care, quit. They threaten to sue employees who ever reveal any of this, even to fellow employees. Edit, my inbox is blowing up with people telling me about the Wikipedia article. I know. That edit was made as a result of this post. DuPont killed off an endangered species in an area they wanted to expand. Then they laid off some folks who knew they were endangered, and magically, the EPA inspector didn't find anything, because they had buried up the pits and holes where the frogs had died. Edit, if I was single and didn't have a wife or dependents, I would consider speaking out and bringing it to the press. But I won't throw away their lives. My friend from Panera worked over 40 hours a week, multiple weeks, and her boss would cut her hours at 40 and not even pay her a regular wage for the extra hours. She reached out to corporate about it, and they did nothing. Edit, holy comments Batman, I'm just gonna make an edit responding to the most of these comments. This was 4 to 5 years ago, and she is living in another state, probably way too late for her to deal with this now. I say full-time for 20 to 25 hours a week, meaning 20 to 25, or more. If you worked less than that amount, you were part-time, and get no basic benefits. If you worked 20 to 25 or more consistently, you would get basic benefits, which included paid sick time, paid vacation time, both of those paid up front, if you didn't use them up, and something else I don't remember. This was BNN. If you were a full-time manager, you would get salary and regular benefits, like basic insurance, and things. I'm not sure if it was franchise or company. It was part of a plaza that had many stores, Kohl's, Barnes and Noble, Old Navy, Dick's Sporting Goods, lots of clothes brand stores, lots of beauty brand stores, a supermarket. And of course, a haiku. Panera Bread sucks. They treat their workers like shit. Get out while you can. I worked for Panera too. I was their sole busboy and dishwasher for the holiday season across from a mall. I would be gathering dishes, often overflowing from the bins, bring them to the sink. I'd get back onto the floor out front, and my store manager would ask, "Why aren't the dishes done?" I would go into the back, get about 3 or 4 dishes done, and my store manager would come back and say, "Why aren't you clearing the dish bins?" I finally quit after a few months, only worked weekends. When I quit, my boss had the sheer balls to say, "Well, this makes it very difficult to schedule for weekends." I told her, "That's not my problem." If you ordered any vodka, Grey Goose, Belvedere, Titus Kettle One, etc., you are getting Blue Ice vodka. Owner of the bar would pour cheap vodka into those bottles. I refused to do it myself, so he would do it. I made phenomenal money there, $350 to $500 a shift, so I never said shit about it. After I quit, I let people know. Was shut down 3 months after. F that guy. It's called marrying bottles, and that shit is highly illegal. I have seen bars get blackballed by distributors for it, simply because, if word gets around, and it's on your supply route, you are responsible, and surprise, you can't get that vodka anymore to resell. Distributors can get killed in a big way, if there is even a hint of it happening in their areas, so they monitor supply and demand closely, for this very reason. It's federal as well as a state and carries some stiff-ass penalties, among the huge fines, like surprise monitoring, complete audits, and permanent loss of liquor licenses, even if you establish new companies. If you ever suspect bottle marrying, or watering down of spirits, you can report them, and if it's found to be true, you may get a bounty in some areas. People don't like when their buzz is being cut by cheap-ass jerks. Edit, a small discourse. Some have pointed out that marrying and adulterating are 2 different things being discussed. The terms both describe the act of combining alcohols, and adulteration is more specific to the practice of using cheap shit in expensive bottles. While I have heard them both used for the same process, just wanted to put that out there in Front Street, to better understand. Whatever the case, both are illegal, and can get you in heaps of trouble. And disgusting. Look up Operation Swill for a recent case about it. Let's just say, it may put you off ordering hooch at TGI Fridays, if you had the mind to. When diesel fuel gets spilled in working waterfront, they just spread dish soap. This sinks the fuel to the bottom, where it can't be cleaned up, avoiding the rainbow slick, $10K fine, and a real cleanup. Let's hide it, and pretend it didn't happen, then it'll go away. My 2-year-old little girl has tried the same logic. I still have copies of emails from our GameStop district manager, directing us to sell through all our pre-orders of GTA 4, instead of holding them for the customers that reserve them, because he got a commission on total numbers sold. Game in the UK did this too. I quit as a result, after a whole 2 days, having to watch my coworkers lie to the faces of people who had prepaid in full for their reservations, after having purposefully sold them all the night before, at the midnight opening, to people with no reservations. My first job was at a French bakery. It's a decent-sized chain in the States. A list of their transgressions against humanity. 1. I watched a pizza come out of the oven and fall, topping side down, on an unusually filthy kitchen floor. This was on Mother's Day, busiest day of the year, for a place like this, so it was scraped up, as instructed by a manager, and tossed back in the oven, with a little extra cheese, to hide all the crap stuck to it. I was made to serve this to a lovely older lady, and it haunts me to this day. 2. The cow. Holy F, the cow. This was what we called a huge fridge-sized milk dispenser that was never cleaned well. One day, someone dragged this disgusting bastard out from the alcove it was in, and, surprise surprise, nobody had cleaned under or behind it for months, if not years. There was a several-inch thick layer of spoiled milk, with a technicolor carpet of mold across it. Makes my stomach turn just thinking about it. 3. At 16, I was given the prestigious position of baking all of the bread, pastries, etc. It was all frozen, and it was not at all uncommon for me to find years-old boxes in the freezer. Those were all cooked and served. Now, their transgressions against me. 1. I was sealed in a human-sized proofing oven for about an hour because of a faulty door. It was on at a low temp, high humidity, but still. 2. There was an actual oven with doors that opened like a kitchen cabinet, swinging open horizontally, rather than open vertically, and it was placed around a corner, at a high traffic area. Well, those doors did not move independently, they were linked, so, if you close, or open one, the other closed. I was leaned way into the effort, and guess what? Someone closed one of the doors, as they were coming around, which closed the other door as well. This resulted in me getting closed in, and it was at about 4:50 F. I struggled out by pressing the sides of my forearms against the doors, resulting in pretty severe burns, as big as 2 computer mice on each forearm. I was made to complete my shift. 3. Boxes in the freezer were stacked way too high, resulting in an avalanche of frozen cookie dough, burying me in that bitch. I had to bang on the wall with my foot for about 20 minutes before the sauté cook came and dug me out. Manager didn't give a F. Allow me to conclude this by saying that I worked in several other restaurants during my young life, and never came across anything remotely like this again. I've never seen a waiter or bartender F with another person's food. As far as I'm concerned, that's a myth. I've never seen such atrocious cleaning practices anywhere else, not even close. Walmart Distribution Center had a week-long orientation. For about 2 days of that orientation, they gave us reasons why unions are bad and have no place in the company. They told us we would be terminated if we tried to unionize. They pretty much fed us propaganda materials and treated us like kids. They made us repeat that we understood the situation and the consequences of attempted unionization. I started working as a casual in a seafood department of a supermarket franchise a while ago. After 2 months, they moved me to full-time. After that, I was Employee of the Month and Assistant Manager. The company asked if I could relocate to another store to run their shop as manager. I was stoked. Manager at 18? Felt good, man. I was there for 8 months, 13-hour days, 6 days a week. I was getting paid $450 a week. I thought something was wrong about that, and approached my manager. He said, because I'm young and still on my full-time probation period, I was earning less, but once probation was over, it'd be on a higher pay grade. Well, probation rolls passed and my pay hadn't gone up. The union came in one day, and were chatting to all the staff about the job. I asked him about my pay grade, and what I was earning, and his jaw literally dropped. He pulled out his folder, and showed me what I was supposed to be earning, which was over double. He backed me up when I approached head office about it, and despite them trying to pull over everything in the book to avoid back paying me, I ended up walking out of that meeting with something like $7 grand, plus a penalty. The company went from 15 major stores to 2 in the space of 3 years. At a movie theater, where I used to work, at the end of the night, we would collect all the unsold popcorn and stuff it into these enormous yellow trash bags. The next morning, yesterday's popcorn was the first to go in the warmer. My boss said that popcorn was fine to reheat and serve for up to a week. We never dated the bags, though, bags that we were not allowed to throw away. We reused them all the time, so there was literally no way to know how old the popcorn was. Not as horrifying as some stuff here, but I thought it was kinda gross. Edit: you are all correct that popcorn is very inexpensive, and the profit margin is huge. No, I don't know why they went to those lengths to conserve as much as possible. We all thought it was absolutely ridiculous too. I can at the very least tell you that the reason there is such an enormous upcharge on popcorn and concessions in general is because movie theaters make next to nothing on ticket sales. I'm talking something like 6 cents per ticket. I worked at a theater when I was a teenager, but it was a fairly nice one, and at the end of the night, all the hot dogs and nachos that weren't sold were thrown out, although the cups of nacho cheese, which were sealed, might have gone back into the fridge, can't remember for sure, and all the popcorn was fair game for employees to eat or take home. Anything that wasn't claimed went straight into the dumpster. Worked in a private-owned doctor's office. They would routinely schedule people with government insurance for appointments months out, and schedule people with private insurance for much closer appointments, next day even. Also, since Medicare and Medicaid won't pay for immunizations and therapeutic injections separately when they are given during an office visit, they would schedule the patient for another appointment the next morning and give the injection then, thereby allowing them to bill it separately. The thing is, the patient never even knows about this second appointment, and their insurance pays the bills. The office manager would also sign into the doctor's computers and send in narcotic RXs for patients under their names, even though she has no medical license at all. Edit: example. A patient comes in for an office visit and gets a flu shot. No other vaccines given. They are billed for the office visit that day and for the flu shot the next day. Also, the manager says all of the doctor's passwords and keys to their systems. She claimed it was just in case anything happens that I need to fix, and they're not here, but she often used it for other purposes, even when they were in office or on vacation. I posted below, but I also wanted to share the rationale behind the injection thing, because some people are thinking it's fraud, for fraud's sake. Imagine I'm a doctor, and you come to my clinic. You need drug injection A, and vaccine B. The most convenient and logical option would be to just give them both to you at the same visit, right? Well, Medicare/Aid would only pay me for one of those procedures, because they only reimburse for one of those procedures a day. Now what can I do? I could 1. Inject one of the injections into you, and tell you to come back tomorrow morning or next week for the other one. Probably a very high rate of attrition. Or 2. Inject you with both at the same visit, and get creative with the dates I report to Medicare/Aid. This is a rather stupid dilemma, among other stupid dilemmas that's created in our healthcare system, but hey, nothing is perfect. Went to an Aveda beauty school. Every year, Aveda does a big recycling cap program, since most plastic caps cannot be recycled. We collected caps for a month, and our clients were really excited to be helping the environment. After the promo was done, the instructors made us grab 3 to 4 garbage bags of caps each, and we threw them in the dumpster of the building next door. We didn't even use our own trash. Probably because Aveda can take away their franchising rights if they find any infractions. Also, Aveda is owned by Estee Lauder, so There is literally nothing natural about them. And they test on animals. This kinda applies. I was about 18 at the time, and worked at a retail-type store, that is burned to the ground now, so, F it. I worked with a middle-aged guy, still in an entry-level position, and my boss was unusually rude to him. After a long winter, watching the guy constantly being treated worse than others, he told me he was leaving town, and not to tell anyone. He did just that, and even used the company's garage to build a bed on his truck beforehand. He left and my boss was livid. He clearly depended on the guy much more than he let on. I never told my boss I knew where he was or what happened, and I'm still not sure if that was the right thing to do. I know for a fact I would have said something if I had seen the guy treated fairly, that much I know. That's so true with shirty bosses. The more they depend on their employees, the worse they treat them. Can confirm. My last job, I single-handedly ran 5 different positions. I stayed after hours to help, was forced to do it. I was the only one that knew half the recipes, as I memorized them, and my boss threw out the recipe binder. I picked up all the overtime, because we always have call-offs. When one of the lost recipes needed made, I was always called in to make them, instead of anyone remaking the recipe book or training the new employees to learn the recipes. My boss tried falsifying information about me. I called him out, and quit. They now have a lawsuit from a different employee, more than 7 positions to fill, because several people walked out and quit with me, and they lost half of the recipes they relied on, because I refused to make a new recipe book for them, after FWIT destroyed the original. F you Edward B. I'll take every effing recipe to the grave, just to make sure you never get them back. When I worked in the mailroom for the main AT&T facility for the West Coast, the management company Global Real Estate would order TiVos and flat-screen TVs for the 350-plus vacant rooms in the building at the end of every fiscal year. After they were installed, the following weekend, all those TVs and TiVos would magically turn up missing. If you look up Global Real Estate, they're up to some pretty shady shit all around the world. I'm pretty sure they're run by the mob. My Italian boss once made a thinly veiled death threat to me over a steak during a Christmas party. The best I can think of is Burger King gets a lot of its foods from other companies, while advertising that everything they make is their own branding. That and none of the stuff we fry are fresh, they're just re-dipped and refried over and over in used batches. Edit. That's why I said we to solve all the mysteries regarding locations. Also, I'm keeping that grammar error up there. Now it's just to simply piss off grammar Nazis. So, keep those correction replies coming while I move on with myself. If anyone asks, I don't remember a lot of the company names who provides these foods to Burger King. It was 2014, I worked as a janitor for them, and I didn't care enough to memorize the names. Since I was there just slugging it out to make some money, before inevitably quitting because of their poor pay and atmosphere. I suspect some of the replies were jokes like the Hershey's Pie one. Yeah, I know, haha, good joke and all. But, you know what I'm talking about when it comes to false advertising. I worked at this awful effing pet store that sold dogs. We all knew the prices of all the dogs by heart, but if someone asked, we had to pretend not to know. Bring the dog out to them to play with, even if they specifically ask you not to, so they get attached. Meanwhile, I'm in the back with my thumb up my ass, pretending to look up the price. Then when they're all nice and bonded with the dog, I'd have to come out to tell them that instead of the $300-ish they were expecting, it would be more like $2,500. Cue tears. Lots of effing tears. There was all this complete bullshit we had to tell them to justify the price, including that the dogs were registered. Well, I had a customer come back, absolutely effing furious, that the dog wasn't actually registered. Turns out, what management meant, but didn't ever say to us, was that the dogs were registerable. That's just one example of a whole lot of shit I put up with there. I'm a pretty honest person, as guilt really gets to me, more than normal. I think, all that intense lying through my teeth to good people made me extremely depressed, and I quit after only 3 months. PetSmart, which actually normally wasn't as bad as you'd expect, made a stake the sick animals to the in-store vet, Banfield, which would be fine, but Banfield only sees cats and dogs. Which resulted in a lot of small mammals and lizards getting incorrect medicine and diagnosis, and eventually passing away. Though, the store I was at realized this, and now they take them to a reptile and small mammal specialist. We also couldn't say no to a sale, meaning many fish went home in bowls, guinea pigs went home in hamster cages, and so on. The breeder that sell us the animals normally send us the rejects, meaning it wasn't rare for us to get an animal in that was malformed, malnourished, and sometimes even with severe injuries. Also, the hamsters constantly eat each other. Edit. Holy shit, a lot of you guys liked this. May start a topic of Ask a Pet Store Employee to talk more about this. It's interesting hearing everyone's stories and experiences. Arby's is vile. They will sell you sandwiches that are literally roast beef shavings and burnt scraps because they want to save money by not wasting even inedible bits of beef. I was told when I worked there to not waste any meat, even if it meant rolling a pile of burnt skin, rubbery scraps, and miscellaneous shavings into a ball and plopping it on a bun. I quit after a week. Edit. So, worth clarifying, yes, there are well-run Arby's. Mine was a training store, owned by a very large franchisee, and they are the embodiment of penny-pinching miserliness. Their preferred method of rotating stock, cheeses, veggies, is to switch the labels when the hold date is exceeded, rather than actually discarding expired product.